American networks, I thought, aha, this is my moment for today, at least. I'll ask him about the markets tumbling, about tariffs on, off. He didn't like it.
Stop that crap.
But he does seem to be changing his mind all the time.
Stop that crap.
But is that part of it?
Sir, where are you from?
From Sky News UK.
Yeah.
May I ask you?
Come on.
Yeah,
But
do you?
Stop.
Back up.
Mr. Navarro, can you
Stop.
I'm allowed to ask
Mr.
questions,
Navarro?
aren't I?
I've asked three.
So you don't believe?
Stone versus Navarro. We'll bring you the full blow-by-blow. I'm James Matthews.
And I'm Mark Stone.
And this is day 52 of Trump 100. Is there a glimmer of light for Ukraine as negotiators agree to a 30-day ceasefire?
And the gloves are off in the all-out US-Canada trade war. Can the neighbours and the markets come back from this?
And would you buy a second-hand car from this man, or indeed a new one? We had Trump punting Teslas today using the White House. It was the White House as car showroom.
It was quite the sight.
So, Mark, yesterday there wasn't much coming out of the White House, which was unusual. We thought maybe it was because the markets were tumbling, the president not coming out to play. But today, another day, another Donald. He was back out, the show back on the road, literally, as he paraded Teslas in the grounds with Elon Musk. More on that later. But the hard news of the day was Ukraine and progress, just maybe, yeah?
Yeah, big news and good news. It came in from Saudi Arabia, where Ukrainian and US officials were holding peace negotiations today. The top line is that Ukraine has accepted a 30-day ceasefire proposal, a massively significant moment for sure, and potentially a punctuation point in this conflict. We'll talk in a moment about what's in this proposal, but other things to note that came out of the talks today, the fact that the US confirmed that it would immediately lift the pause on intelligence sharing and military aid weapons for Ukraine. That is a crucial step forward. It may explain, incidentally, why Ukraine was keen to sign up to the wording that maybe the US just provided them. The small question of Russia was also clearly mentioned. I mean, they are the party that are not around this table at the moment. What will they do now? Trump has said that he is expecting to speak to Putin very soon, perhaps this week, perhaps in the next couple of days. And he expects that a total ceasefire is not far off. Of course, we just don't know how Russia will respond.
Yeah, the Americans are saying the ball's in the Russians' court now. You have to wonder, I think, if Trump has been given guidance from his old new friend, Vladimir Putin, on whether the ceasefire suits him. I mean, that's how diplomacy normally works. Back channels before the news channels. We'll see. Volodymyr Zelensky, certainly, Ukraine's president, he's calling this a positive step. Tell us, Mark, exactly what they have agreed to, the Americans and the Ukrainians.
Well, this was the joint statement was issued after 6-7 hours worth of talks. The key points for me, rattling through them, first of all, that Ukraine reiterated their gratitude for American support for making meaningful progress towards peace. Tick for Donald Trump. That's what Zelensky apparently didn't do in the Oval Office. He has done it today. Secondly, Ukraine's readiness to accept this 30-day ceasefire. Sounds like a big breakthrough, but Ukraine, you could argue, was always willing to have a ceasefire if security guarantees preventing Putin from walking all over whatever ceasefire comes, if those guarantees were there. The United States has said it is committed to discussing specific long-term security proposals with representatives from Russia. That sounds more positive for Ukraine, but as I say, it is still not the security guarantees that they want to prevent Russia from just trampling over everything. This is interesting. Ukraine has reiterated that European partners must be involved in the peace process. What does that mean? European peacekeepers, maybe. Russia has said a hard no to that before. So, how does all that fit together in the negotiations? And then perhaps, as I said, perhaps the main reason Ukraine was willing to sign up to all of this because America has said we will reinstate weapons flows and intelligence sharing. So, in a sense, Trump had them over a barrel on this.
Yeah, Bloomberg are reporting the UK was heavily involved in this deal behind the scenes. The UK's National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell, met with his French and German counterparts, then the Ukrainians, and they produced this proposal for a staged process one that worked through the various stages towards full negotiations on peace, ceasefire first of all, exchange of prisoners, return of children, and so on. But, we are left with this question of what Putin does next.
Yeah, and also the other thing that struck me today, it seems to me that the Americans are, and the Trump administration is framing all this to underline Trump as the hard man negotiator, the peacemaker. I mean, in a sense, where we have got to today could have happened at least 2 weeks ago if there hadn't been that meltdown in the Oval Office, which, there's been so much discussion about whether that was contrived by the US side to create this sense of we're in charge, we'll do it our way, you dance to our tune, Ukraine.
We're back to square one. One step forward, 2 steps back. What Putin does next, I think that is the test of Trump. Nothing we've heard from Moscow suggests that he is prepared for anything like the compromise that would suit Ukraine. There's every indication that he's ready to fight on if he doesn't get what he wants. He has said in the past that Ukraine must formally commit to neutrality, abandon any ambition to join NATO, demilitarize and recognize Russian claims to annexed territory. Now, if he doesn't shift from that, what does Donald Trump do? Does he toe the line with Putin? Does he walk away?
Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, said today the ball is now firmly in Russia's court. I think you could argue the ball has always been in Russia's court. They are the aggressor. They're the country that invaded another country. Maybe Steve Witkoff is the key here. He is Trump's deal maker. He's heading back to Moscow. He seems to have struck up a fascinating relationship with Vladimir Putin. I listened to him last month talking about his last visit.
And so we went, and it was a great trip. I spent a lot of time with President Putin, talking, developing a friendship, a relationship with him. And that led to Mark getting on the plane. And
Steve Witkoff, the man who will travel to Moscow with ceasefire in mind. I think, Mark, the ceasefire that works for Ukraine, for Zelensky, is one that continues on, actually, and realistically buys him time, allows Europe to grow and deploy an effective force that can be deployed on the ground to protect Ukraine, rather than to continually and consistently rely on a US president who's with Zelensky one day and he's with somebody else the next. Anyway, moving on.
Tesla.
Quite the spectacle in the White House. First time that we've ever seen the White House used
As a showroom.
to sell a product. Yeah, as a car showroom.
It was a photo opportunity. The timing was no coincidence. As you say, Tesla shares have slumped dramatically. Musk not very popular. People not buying his cars. Some actively boycotting showrooms, vandalizing them in some cases, and those bumper stickers everywhere. I bought this before I knew Elon was crazy. Yeah. So the moment, it looked pretty weird. South Lawn, 4 or 5 Tesla cars, Donald Trump walking, getting into one at one stage. Can I get in? He said. He sits down in the driver's seat. Musk gets into the passenger seat. They talk about it. He sort of describes how he's like, look, it's all computers. I mean, I don't know when the last time he sat in the driver's seat of a car was, but it was a sort of weird moment. Then he got out, and all the questions were, of course, all about Russia and Ukraine, but with these Teslas behind, really weird.
Yeah, and this business of selling a product on the White House lawn, Trump was captured by a photographer, actually, the paperwork he had in his hand.
He was literally selling it.
And I'm just looking at the list now. On Donald J. Trump notepaper, Tesla pricing, full self-driving, Model X, 112,490. CT, Model S, Model Y.
They're quite expensive, aren't they?
Teslas can be purchased for as low as $299 a month.
And this is handwritten. Presumably, it's not his handwriting. Some aide has written that on his notes.
It's literally the sales pitch.
Yeah.
You know what I think?
Yeah.
In fact, here's a bet for you. I think Elon Musk will be out of government by December, if not long before, actually. And I think today was part of Donald Trump trying to reel him in, trying to cheer him up, actually. Tesla's been tanking. Musk's popularity has been tanking. He's in all kinds of difficulty with Doge and the work he's carrying out there. He's experiencing hate in a way that he has never done before. And I think that interview yesterday, he looked bruised. And he was asked, and we spoke about this, will you still be here in a year's time? He said, yes, I think so. Why didn't he say, yes, absolutely, given a guarantee? I think, see if he was a football player. the back pages on the basis of that interview would be full of Musk wants away.
Yeah.
Musk wants a transfer.
Yeah.
Because, it doesn't seem to be working for him. And I wonder, was that Trump saying, look, you spent millions getting me into office.
Yeah.
I realize that I'm invested in this relationship because you can do me harm if we fall out.
Yeah.
I think that was Musk punting Tesla, trying to lift its share price and reassure the first buddy to keep him in the tent.
Yeah. Your football analogy reminds me of what my son's head teacher said to me today as I dropped him off for school. He said, "I'm loving the podcast." He said, "Do you know why I like it?" I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because you three sound like like football pundits, but you're doing football punditry for Trump, and I love it." So there you go.
Well, yeah, nice one, Mark. Yeah, the boy done well.
This was a bit of a distraction from the other big news of the day, the North American trade war, which literally exploded hours before, as did the US stock market. Clearly, yesterday's stock market nosedive wasn't enough to spook Donald Trump from playing around with tariffs, from introducing more, threatening more. Tuesday, it was US-Canada tit for tat again.
Yeah, in terms of what's happened, let's just briefly run through it. As Martha was telling us yesterday, Ontario, that was threatening a surcharge on electricity imports to 3 US states. Trump didn't like that. He said he would double his planned tariffs on Canadian aluminium and steel. On the back of that, Ontario came back, its premier, announcing he was going to suspend the price increase on electricity. He'd spoken to the US Commerce Secretary, and the pair are going to meet later this week.
Yeah, he only said he was going to put it on pause, the Ontario premier, because he had managed to secure a meeting with his opposite number in Washington. That prompted Trump to, as you say, ditch his 50% tariffs. The markets, though, understandably freaked out. They dropped quite significantly, again briefly pulling Wall Street 10% below its record set last month. By afternoon, the markets had paired some losses as the fractious nature of all this sort of whirlwind roller coaster settled a little. The meeting scheduled for this week between those two key figures to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, that's encouraging because there has been no call between Mark Carney, the man who will be PM of Canada, and Donald Trump. But, of course, it's a story with a lot of moving parts, not least of which is it's a Commonwealth country, Canada. What is the conversation between Carney and Starmer when they speak about a way forward? Where is the alliance there for Britain? Is it with his Commonwealth partner or the United States? Difficult one for Starmer.
And the king as well. He's been asked to say something to Trump at the state visit whenever that happens. Anyway, Martha, who can't be with us for this episode because she is in Canada right now, watching all this unfold from the other side of the border. And for now, she has sent us this dispatch from the front.
It seems like every day here, people turn on the TV and there's some new announcement, some new attack from the Trump administration. That's certainly how it feels. And there's a real sense of not just upset, but betrayal and really dismay, I think, at what's happening here. And Canadians are not taking this lying down. I'm actually speaking to you from a coffee shop. I'll just turn this coffee cup round. It says Canadianos on it, and this is Misha's coffee shop, which is on the outskirts of Victoria, and the man who owns it is called Alan Sinclair, and he says he makes Canadianos because they're stronger than the American alternative. But there are these small protests popping up all over British Columbia. Alan has actually on his shelf, he's got liquor bottles, and the bottles that are made in America, he's turned them round so that they're no longer on display to the public. He also says that once they're finished with, he's not going to. So these are small acts of defiance. On a bigger scale, or on a governmental scale, we're going to interview the British Columbia Premier, a man named David Eby, and I'm going to ask him what he plans on doing to respond to these Trump tariffs, how he plans on protecting Canadian people and their income.
So we'll have more from Martha in Canada on the podcast later this week. Stay tuned for that. But while I was at the White House, James, I ran into Pete Navarro.
This is the clip we heard at the beginning. Yeah?
It is indeed. An economist and senior advisor to Donald Trump on trade and manufacturing. And I asked him about the impact of Trump's flip-flopping on tariffs.
The president seems to be changing his mind by the hour at the moment.
You gotta move out of the way, sweet.
What are your views on the fact that
you don't understand what a negotiation looks like. The president is negotiating strategically. So stop with the rhetoric, okay? Just stop that crap.
But he does seem to be changing his mind all the time.
Stop that crap.
But is that part of it?
Sir, where are you from?
From Sky News UK.
Yeah.
May I ask you
come
for-
on.
Yeah, Mr. But why is that? Why is that?
Just
It's a
behave
fact that he's
civilly.
changing his mind every single day.
It's a negotiation, my friend.
Right. So he doesn't mean it. So it's all part of a negotiation. And it's causing havoc to the stock markets.
It's not causing havoc.
Well, it is. They are tumbling.
Okay, I'll take other questions. This gentleman is
But do you?
Stop.
Back up.
Mr. Navarro, can
Well,
you
it's my,
Stop.
I'm allowed to
Mr.
ask questions, am
You
I?
have asked three.
So you don't.
Navarro versus Stone. There you go. A man who was jailed, not you, Mark, for 4 months for contempt of Congress. Navarro, he actually refused to say anything about efforts to overturn the last election. He was jailed for keeping his mouth shut. And now he wants you to remain silent. The irony of it all.
Yeah, but the other thing he did do in that clip is confirm that tariffs are being introduced across the board at 25% on aluminium and on steel. That includes the UK. We know the UK was trying to carve out some sort of a different deal. They haven't managed to. And that will have an impact, a huge impact. I think it's 5% of UK steel goes to the United States. That will now have tariffs of 25%, 6% of aluminium, 25% on top of that. What's interesting is that the UK is taking a different approach from other countries. The EU is going to whack on reciprocal tariffs, effectively a trade war. The UK is deciding not to do that because I think they hope that they can get on Trump's right side and that down the line, tomorrow maybe, who knows how fast things are moving, then some sort of an arrangement can be made for the UK.
Okay, that's it for today. Before we go, a reminder to send us your questions for this weekend's Q&A episode. You can email us on trump100@sky.uk. And if you don't already, please do follow Trump 100 wherever you're listening.
Yeah, thanks very much for listening to day 52 of Trump 100. See you tomorrow for day 53.